Welcome everyone to today's podcast. My name is Paul. I'm in Peterhead in Scotland. I'm very pleased to be here, a recovered addict, and I'm also happy to say I've been joined by Ashley.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Ashley, recovered drug addict, calling from Cambridgeshire near Huntingdon. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Glad you're here. So today we've each brought a few topics from our basic text, Alcoholics Anonymous, often called the Big Book. We're both in recovery. We're not a spokesperson for CA. We're just members sharing our experience, strength, and hope. So welcome to the podcast. So underneath wherever you see this posted, you'll have opportunity to comment. You can like, share, subscribe. If you want to appear on one of these broadcasts, just put your first name and number in the chat. We'll reach out to you. Do feel free to comment. As I say, if you want to keep us right, add to what's being said, you can absolutely do that. We also maintain current male and female sponsorship lists. So if you look at sponsorship, again, put your first name, number, and sponsorship list in the chat. We'll happily send it to you privately on WhatsApp. There's also very healthy WhatsApp groups. Most of CA's networking now takes place on WhatsApp. It really is a world to itself. I must be in about 15, 20 different WhatsApp groups that are very, very healthy. I'm not in any unhealthy ones. They're all really, really good. So if you want to be added, let us know in the chat. Me and Ashley are part of a very healthy, active group that's 12-step meetings every day, all year round, called Weekend Recovery. It's 2 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9:30 UK time. They're open public meetings. There's various sponsorship families come along to meet every day. So do feel free to pop along. At some point during this podcast, I will put, in fact, I'll do it now. If you look at the screen, folks, there you go. That's a meeting screen on that screen. That's a very great one because all the ones in green, they're all on every day. All those ones on that screen, they're all on every day. The UK Samaritan's numbers at the bottom right, as is the CA UK helpline. They're all open public meetings. And as I said, the meeting ID for Week and Recovery is up in the top there in the white, in the pinky purpley box. So, get involved, take some action, folks. You can recover. So, today, Ashley has brought a topic to start us off from a chapter called There Is a Solution.
Yeah, thanks very much, Paul. Yeah, so I'll start the podcast off with, like Paul said, chapter 2, There Is a Solution, page 17. So, there is a solution. We of Alcoholics Anonymous know thousands of men and women who once just as hopeless as Bill. Nearly all have recovered. They have solved the drink problem. We are average Americans. All sections of this country and many of the occupations are represented, as well as many political, economic, social, and religious backgrounds. We are people who normally would not mix, but there exists among us a fellowship of friendliness and an understanding which is indescribably wonderful. We are like the passengers of a great liner the moment after rescue from a shipwreck. When camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage to captain's table, unlike the feelings of the ship's passengers, however, our joy in the escape from disaster does not subside as we go in our individual ways. The feeling of having shared a common peril is one element in the powerful cement which binds us, but that is itself would never have held us together as we are now joined. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we cannot absolutely agree and upon which we can enjoy brotherly, harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism. An illness of this sort, as we come to believe it is an illness, involves those about us in a way no other human sickness can. If a person has cancer, all are sorry for him, and no one is angry or hurt. But not with the alcoholic illness, for with it there goes annihilation of all things worthwhile in life. It engulfs all woes lives touched, the sufferers. It brings misunderstanding, fierce resentment, financial insecurity, disgusted friends and employers, warped lives of blameless children, sad wives and parents. Anyone can increase the list. we hope this volume will will inform and comfort those who are or who may be affected. There are many highly competent psychiatrists who have dealt with us have found it sometimes impossible to persuade an alcoholic to discuss his situation without reserve. Strangely enough, wives and parents and intimate friends usually find us even more unapproachable than do the psychiatrist and the doctor. I'll leave it there, Paul.
Brilliant. So the format is each of us brings a topic and then shares on it. So would you like to say a few words about that?
Yeah, I'll come back in and share on that. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, so there is a solution. So, I'm a recovered drug addict. When I first sort of came in the rooms and got to an understanding of what this was all about, and looking at the chapters and working through the step work on a regular basis, I come across chapter 2 within the step work, and it kind of sort of stuck out to me in a way that where it sort of goes on to say that thousands of men and women who were once just as hopeless as Bill, nearly all have recovered. They have solved the drink problem. And I thought, wow, that's really kind of, that's quite a powerful bit there to say that, people are recovering from doing, the 12 steps and having a bit of a sort of a bit of a common understanding with all this sort of stuff that we go on about. And that kind of really stuck out for me, because whatever I was kind of doing in a way, it wasn't really working. So I kind of wanted to know something different around the way I was thinking around being able to stop the drug problem, because that's why I needed to be a part of the fellowship and carry out some step work. And before all of that, I just like all of us, I was under the illusion that I could stop on my own accord, and it didn't work. So it was about getting connected to a power greater than myself. Wasn't easy. It's not an easy program. It requires a lot of hard work, some real solid commitment to certain aspects of it, and showing a bit of willingness around stuff that I wasn't doing, before. So yeah, that's pretty much what I feel about that. Yeah, thanks, Paul.
So yeah, there's that word recovered. For me, a recovered man or a recovered woman is someone that doesn't obsess about acquiring drugs, therefore doesn't ingest drugs. I keep it that simple. Actually, that's someone that's recovered as far as I'm concerned. They've solved the problem, and there seems to be this fear-based thing sometimes in modern CFs. Well, you can't say that, it's like in earlier they would say, well, I've got a cure, I've got a cure for alcoholism. And people, because of fear, like, oh, you can't say that. And it's because they're in fear of unstable new people thinking they can go and drink a drug successfully, which is just silly, really. That's just silly. It's fear based. No. In early AA, they would say, "Oh, I've got a cure for alcoholism," and that's what they meant. And what they're referring to is a relationship with God, a fit spiritual condition, a daily program of action, structure, commitment, faith and trust, willingness. They're talking about living this design, having an ordered lifestyle, actually, and being responsible. So we don't need to be in fear about using the language of the book. It is an illness and there is a cure, and it's this daily program of action. So the fellowship is very various. There's all kinds of folk in it: young, old, black, white, foreign, Western, rich, poor. There's all different persons in it. Single folk with 7 children. It's a progressive fatal illness. You never need to drink a drug ever again. It's a self-centered delusion. A drink or drug is going to be helpful. And ultimately, it's a lust-based illness. It's if you've got drugs in your system of any type, and alcohol is a drug. If you listen to this, you're alcoholic, you're a drug addict. Alcohol is a drug. medically, scientifically, grammatically. If you're addicted to it, you are addicted to a drug, which makes you a drug addict. I keep it really simple today, Ashley. And I don't take any drugs, liquid or otherwise, these days. I haven't done for a very long time. And all drugs, actually, whether it's cocaine, heroin, weed, alcohol, they all produce a form of drunkenness, I find that really helpful, actually, to think in those terms. They all produce a form of drunkenness. And that's what you were addicted to. You was addicted to the feelings produced, as well as having the lust of the liver and the receptors in the brain for the chemicals. You were also addicted to the feelings produced. Oh, yes, that's what you was addicted to, drunkenness. But it is lust-based, see. It's lust-based and in tandem with the physiological experience. There's the emotional, feelings-based mood change as well, which is chemically brought on. And so it's a lust-based spiritual, physical, mental illness that involves selfishness and foolishness. That's what you're dealing with addiction. But the fellowship's a wonderful thing, and in the fellowship with identification in the problem of addiction and identification in the solution of sobriety. There's a way up and out upon which we can absolutely agree. We have a common solution, Ashley. Everyone has, what they say about opinions. Everyone has one, and some of them stink. But when it comes to this solution, Ashley, it's a common solution. It really, really is. Alrighty, so that's great. So that brings us now to the second topic on page 46 here. Let me see. There it is. How could a supreme being have anything to do with it all? And who could comprehend a supreme being anyway? Yet in other moments we found ourselves thinking, when enchanted by a starlit night, who then made all this, Ashley? There's a feeling of awe and wonder, but it was fleeting and soon lost. Yes, we of agnostic temperament have had these thoughts and experiences. Let's make haste to reassure you. We found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice, express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results, even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power which is God. Much to our relief, we discovered we did not need to consider another's conception of God. Our own conception, however inadequate, was sufficient to make the approach and to effect contact with him. As soon as we admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction. Provided we took other simple steps, we found that God does not make too hard terms with those who seek him. To us, the realm of the spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never exclusive or forbidden to those who earnestly seek. It is, we believe, open to all men. When, therefore, we speak to you of God, we mean your own conception of God. This applies to other spiritual expressions, which you find in this book. Don't let any prejudice you might have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. At the start, actually, this was all we needed to commence spiritual growth, to effect our first conscious relation with God. As we understood it afterwards, we found ourselves accepting many things which then seemed entirely out of reach. That was growth, but if we wished to grow, we had to begin somewhere. So we used our own conception, however limited it was. So the issue of God, in my experience, actually, it's time to pray. Let's pray, and just begin praying the serenity prayer with your new person. You're not there to have a big theological discourse with someone about God when you begin sponsorship. You're there to get through the steps so they can stop drugging. Understand me? So when it comes to the Stepwork call, you're not there to sort of like persuade them or what about this? No, let's pray. Just do the serenity prayer. Ideally at the beginning and end of the call, if you can remember, and that's where the power is, to bring God into all your circumstances. That's really what recovery is. Instead of bringing the devil in to the ruination of your existence, you're bringing God in. So just looking at this text here from We Agnostic, Gnostic is a Greek Latin word that means knowledge or having the knowledge. So if you're a Gnostic, it means you've got this gnosis. And it's the origin of the word gnosis. And we say Gnostic, which means you've got the knowledge. If you're a Gnostic, it means you know. So I'm Gnostic. You're somewhat Gnostic. Right? So if you put an A in front of it in the ancient language, it means without knowledge. So agnostic means without the knowledge. So the chapter is written to folks without the knowledge of the divine. See, and that's a whole lot of folk. Great Britain and most of the world is a very dark place, actually. I don't know if you've noticed. Very, very dark spiritually. So it's no surprise folks come to recovery bedeviled, prejudiced, presumptuous, and deluded around the Creator, around the Lord Jesus Christ, around Allah, around God, around Jehovah. So then we have this wonderful term, the God of your understanding, but that's all anyone has. Any human only understands God as they understand him. So it's just plain common sense, really. You know what I mean? You only understand God in the degree you understand God. You know, you can try and understand how other people describe God. You know, it's a bit like describing the taste of banana ice cream. You know what I mean? It's your strawberry yogurt. You have to have experiential truth. So, anyway, it's one of the great jobs of sobriety. Actually, is to learn about the Creator. In finding God, you find yourself. You know, so it's one of the greatest and greatest privileges on earth is to appreciate and understand God. Really. So I'll leave it there. What do you think, Ashley? Over to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Paul. Yeah, I'll sort of echo what you've been sort of talking about and reading really. For me it was, like you were saying, getting right with God and getting in the right way of thinking, as it was kind of mentioned in those chapters really. Because we can quite, I mean, we can quite easily get into the old saying of the yin and the yang, and start talking about I guess irrelevant topics. But I guess the reality on the ground is that we need to get down to business around why we keep using and why we can't stop, and why we keep destroying other people's lives around this illness, around these things. And I kind of, that's something that, we all learn. And that's the beauty of the program really, is that we can, have some, I think we can have some accountability around the actions and the way that we talk and the way that we say things. And it's not easy. It's a learning process, I think. But it's I think it gives us the ability to restore that warped way of thinking into kind of sanity again. But yeah, that's about it, Paul. Really, but
Brilliant.
I'll
What is your next topic on, Ashley?
Yeah, my next topic is chapter 5, how it works. So yes, I'll start now. So
Right.
chapter 5, how it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constantly incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like and what happened and what we are like now. If you've decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. Some of these we bought. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all earnesties at our command, we beg of you to be fearless, thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, and powerful. without help it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power, that one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. Step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3. Made the decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Step 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6. We were entirely ready to have God remove all of these defects of character. Step 7. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. Step 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10. Continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitting it. Step 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for the knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to all alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. And I'll share back on that chapter. So yeah, into action. Sorry, chapter 5, how it works. For me, coming across this part of the book within the processes of going through the step work with a sponsor that's got some good knowledge around this stuff, and that was my main thing really, getting involved with someone that was honest around it, and going straight to the point, kind of not sort of deviating around it, just going into it like it says in how it works, and understanding that, like it says at the top, it says, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. And that kind of really stuck out for me, because I was thinking around things that were not thoroughly, and I wanted to know some kind of new way around that. And that kind of stuck out to me. Because I could, I think, like it says, I can find myself, or did find myself, getting periods and intermittent speckles of sort of clean time, would come in and out the rooms, get a sponsor, and I'd just find myself sort of like drifting and, and using again. But, like I said just a moment ago, when I started to read this a bit more seriously, it kind of it empowered me to believe that there is a solution around this. And you know working with others, as it describes in the bullet points of 1 to 12 on page 59, and sharing this message with another man, to let them know that there is a solution. And not talking about what I want to do and how I think I should, just trying to put my sort of own self out of the equation, but what can I do to help somebody else, sort of thing. And it is a very sort of, I guess it's a very famous part of the 12-step sort of program, how it works, and along with all the other pages within this book. And I think it's just given us an idea of the things that we need, that we can do in order to have a sustainable life and have some accountability, and not keep sort of throwing the blame at everyone else around the problem that we are actually doing, because that's something that I kind of got to terms with. I'm doing it, nobody else is nobody else is putting a gun to my head to, they're not saying, oh, come on, you need to go down there and pick up. It was, I actually believed that I'm making the choices to go and do this. And this is what it's kind of saying to me here, that, it's given me another choice. And this other choice that I was reading about it's a better choice, but, it's about practice and having that, wanting to do it, and that was the thing for me. I wanted to do it because I didn't want to be the person I was, and and that's the way I've been carrying it for quite some time now. But yeah, I'll leave it at that, Paul. Thanks for letting me read.
Yeah, radical acceptance of the problem of addiction, both in terms of getting an understanding of the illness and of the consequences. Welcome to the listener that's just joined. We're glad you're here. We're actually recording a podcast. You're very welcome to stay and listen if you wish. The chat is open if you want to type in the chat. So it's about radical acceptance of the problem and the results of the problem, really. Actually, that's what the first step is. Understanding that it is an illness, people say it's not a disease, but everyone I know that's caught it from being around folk that already have it. So you don't breathe it in like you do the flu, but you definitely pick it up from being around folk that already have the problem, And as I say, for an alcoholic addict, if you ingest any drugs at all, liquid drugs or otherwise, you set off a physical lust for more, and that in tandem with a mental obsession will take you to hell, so to speak. And the result of that is a load of problems that brings you to recovery, untenable problems that you don't like, you don't want. And really, the journey to step one is a really painful journey for a lot of folk. In fact, an addict dies every 6 seconds or so on this planet from addiction, and that doesn't include people who opt out, nor does it include people who die months and years later from internal complications after having quit. So it's a progressive fatal illness, is addiction. And no one who ends up a chronic user actually ever planned to. That's just how they ended up for them, because it's progressive. You see, if it's a good idea to get high, why not get high more often? If it's a good idea to get off your head on a Friday night, why not Friday, Saturday? Why not Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Why not Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Then it's just a matter of time between Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday come in. And then why not earlier in the day, earlier in the afternoon? And before you know it, it's first thing at morning, last thing at night. And that's the progression of a chronic addict to any substance. And that's the journey most addicts are on. Thank God if you're listening to this and you got off that train wreck before you got to that stage, but that is the process. So I really like this part of the book, Ashley, and it's part of the book you and me have read more than once in the past together, I believe. And it's only with rigorous honesty that there can be recovery, really. It's only with radical acceptance of the problem and the results of the problem, the difficulties, and the stuff that upsets you becomes your power. Your powerlessness becomes your power. It's like a boomerang. But in the past, you've been throwing that boomerang out there and it's been whacking you on the back of the head. Step one is catching the boomerang. As you astutely observed, Ashley, you are responsible for your choices. In this process, getting divine power. So that's what the program is, divine power and moral psychology. And through the process, you get some power to stay honest. That's really what it is. So this is where I come when someone's picked up again, Ashley. If they're in the early steps, or indeed any of the steps, I suppose, and they say, "Oh, I picked up," we come straight here to 58 to 60, finishing with the ABCs here on page 60. Look, that we were alcohol.
Yeah, I think we just dropped reception there, but yeah, I'll carry off from where Paul's been reading from. But yeah, like what Paul was saying about carrying off, if someone's picked up or used, or that's the ideal place to start again, and that's something that I've kind of found myself doing previously with other guys working within the how it works part. And it's just a fantastic part of the book, as Paul was saying there. And I've found myself many a times going over that part of the book, really, just to kind of recapture and memorize some of the stuff that it goes on to say. Listing the 12 steps to get a clearer understanding of what I need to sort of look at and work at with a sponsor, and share that with somebody else that's struggling, to be honest. Yeah, cheers, Paul. I just thought I'd come in there briefly.
Page 85 down at the bottom. Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah.
11 suggests prayer meditation. We shouldn't be shy in this matter of prayer. Better folk knows using it constantly. It works if we've got the proper attitude and work at it. So prayer works. It'd be easy to be vague about this matter. See, it's all the relationship with God, Ashley, you see. That's what it's all about. Staying clean and living successfully is all about a relationship with God. That's it. And you obtain that relationship through prayer. And then God gives you power to stay honest. God gives you power to exist successfully. That's what the whole program is. Instead of looking for power in heroin, alcohol, cocaine, weed, you're looking for power from God, from the only one that really has power, the one that gives you your next breath. See? And that's where you get the power and strength from God. And now, for many addict alcoholics, as I observed earlier, Western nations are very spiritually dark, which is ironic given the fact that God has blessed Western nations in so many wonderful ways, everything from the sewage system to clean running water in every house, to largely clean streets, the welfare state, the wonderful National Health Service, fire, police, ambulance service, civil service, education service, etc., etc., etc. We've been exceptionally blessed by God. It's very paradoxical that Great Britain and the Western nations are very, very dark spiritually, actually. So for some addicts to come to recovery, to go from drinking and drugging, particularly in chronic usage, to living by faith and trust is a miracle, an absolute miracle. So we're not vague about this. In 12-step recovery, actually, we can tell folk, and a million folk can tell folk, not just us, how to recover. We can tell you precisely how to recover from what seems to be a hopeless state of mind and body. Because it's perception. See, when you're in that situation, actually, off your head, curtain twitching, or gipping, if you're withdrawing from something, it's difficult to understand that it seems to be hopeless, because it does feel hopeless when you're in that situation. If you're listening to this, and you're drinking and drugging, using and boozing with problems, great difficulties, mental, financial, emotional, marital, work problems, then it is difficult to appreciate the spiritual aspect, which is why coming to plenty of meetings is important, good sponsorship, Stepwork, to get into this solution. So when we retire, we constructively review our day. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Do we owe an apology? Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? Were we kind and loving towards everyone, actually? What could we have done better? Now, of course, in the We Can Recover CA meeting that's on 3 times a day all year round, actually, in the 9:30 meeting, which is a 40-minute meeting, we do an inventory. We do kind of like a group inventory, but we do it as a group, but we just write it down individually, if that makes sense. So the questions are like broadcast, and we have 30 seconds, a minute to think about it and just jot down our answers, you see. And these are the questions that we ask ourselves every night. So, having a look at your behaviour, having a look at the day, it's a really important part of recovery. On awakening, let's think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially that it may not have self-pity, dishonest or self-seeking motives, Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance. For after all, God has given us brains to use. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. In thinking about our day, we may face indecision, but we may not be able to determine which course to take. Here we ask God for inspiration, intuitive thought, or a decision. We relax and take it easy, actually. We don't struggle. We're often surprised how the right answers come after we've tried this for a while. So you've got to try the spiritual life. It's not a theory. It has to be experiential. Living by faith has to be experiential. What used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Being still inexperienced and having just made contact with God, it's not probable we're going to be inspired at all times. You might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Nevertheless, we find our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely on it. We usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that would be shown all through the day what our next step is to be, that we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask especially for freedom from self-will and are careful to make no requests for ourselves. We may ask for ourselves only if others will be helped. So what do you think about that?
Thanks, Paul. That's pretty much sort of, like what you were saying. It's the accountability side of it for me as well, what I came to sort of understand, having some, common understandings of of what I'm doing. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Why do I keep doing this? And like what you were saying, it's just having some, ownership around, well, yeah, it was me, but now it's time to take some action. Well, the book's telling me clearly what I need to do, but it's not, it's not as easy as that. It requires some real hard work and some humility. And I still, in a way, I still don't know how this works. And I think that's the beauty of it, is just having that, I guess, that humility factor and not trying to figure it out. Like there's something like a gold medal, like I need to get a gold medal at the end of it. There's a trophy, or it's, like it's been mentioned, it's a continuation of, one day at a time. You know, a solution. It's a solution based, um, bit of toolage. I think it's given us the ability to have some tools and the ability to regain some knowledge and some experience to kind of regain that sort of drug distorted mindset. As it was, as I was understanding the interaction part. Because I just couldn't stop. And when I did stop, that's where the problems were recurring and where it was going on about, Paul was reading the interaction part. It all kind of started to make a little bit of sense of the things that, that were asked of me. But I think it was kind of from a sponsor's point of view, a polite reminder just to get on with it and do it rather than, asking so many questions, but then doing it, discussing it, and then like just doing it, just doing the work rather than saying I'm going to do it. And I think it just becomes more apparent to those who we've put through the mill. I don't necessarily need to say, I'm doing the 12 steps, can you see an improvement? I kind of just started to, like it says, it's into action. I don't really need to sort of explain it. And I think, I'll leave it there, Paul. Thank you.
What's your third topic, Ashley?
So the third topic is chapter 9, the family afterwards, and I'll start reading. Chapter 9, page 122, the family afterwards. So it says, our women folk have suggested certain attitudes a wife may take with the husband who is recovering. Perhaps they created the impression that he is to be wrapped in cotton wool and placed on a pedestal. Successful readjustment means the opposite. All members of the family should meet up on the common ground of tolerance. Understanding love, this involves a process of deflation. The alcoholic, his wife, his children, his in laws, each one is likely to have fixed ideas about the family's attitude towards himself or herself. Each is interested in having his or her own wishes respected. We find the more one member of the family demands that the others concede to him, the more resentful they become. This makes for discord and unhappiness. And why? Is it not because each wants to play the lead? Is it not each trying to arrange the family to show his liking? He is not unconsciously trying to see what he can take from the family life rather than give. Cessation of drinking is but the first step away from a highly strained, abnormal condition. A doctor said to us, years of living with an alcoholic is almost sure to make any wife or child neurotic. The entire family is to some extent ill. Let families realise as they start their journey that all will not be fair weather. Each in his turn may be a footsore and may straggle. There will be alluring shortcuts and bypaths down which they may wander and lose their way. Suppose we tell you some of the obstacles and family will meet. Suppose we suggest how they may be avoided, even converted to good use for others. The family of an alcoholic longs for the return of happiness and security. They remember when the father was romantic, thoughtful, and successful. Today's life is measured against that of other years, and when it falls short, the family may be unhappy. So I'll leave it there at that point. But yeah, the chapter 9 family afterwards, I came across this, proceeding to go through the work with a kind sponsor that, offered to take me through this stuff. And that was kind of, again, that was another part of the book that stuck out to me as I really relate to that. And I guess this is what it's about, getting some, relatability around what I'm reading. And that was very important to me, to get some sort of mirrored sort of views on this, because I thought I was a bit alone with it. But, you know, same situations as what it was saying here, our women folk have suggested certain attitudes a wife may take with a husband. And then it says, who is recovering? Perhaps they created the impression that he is to be wrapped in cotton wool. And I think I guess that's the kind of ideology, sort of like mindset of the normality of most people that are not involved with this, and I think that's where it's a bit of a struggle, I think, with the families that are dealing with guys and girls within the program. And, I guess it's not for them to accept it, and they don't have to, it's a very difficult one. And I think there is a program called I think there's an Al-Anon that's a bereavement process for families that are struggling with this. And there's all sorts of things that go on to help people that are dealing with guys that are using and things. But I think it's just giving us an understanding of what we're doing to the families that we're living with, and giving us a conception of our behaviours. And it's something to take into consideration, I think. But yeah, I'll kindly leave it there, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, um, yeah, it varies greatly, actually, in terms of family involvement when it comes to persons minding addiction or in recovery from addiction. It varies greatly. in terms of the involvement and perspective of other family members. It's more of an interesting theoretical topic, unless you're actually working with others in that situation regularly. But I like this bit here. It says cessation of drinking or drugging is just a first step away from a highly strained abnormal condition. At the time, the alcoholic addict, that's the huge thing. At the time, particularly the feelings, the grieving process. A lot of addicts grieve drugs actually when they stop. There's a grieving process, and that can go on for months and months. Some folk grieve drinking drugs for a year or two. Was it? I think it was perhaps Dr. Bob that said he lusted after a drink, or he thought about drinking every day for 2 years. I think he said. So it's a great beginning, but the thing is to stay in prayer and really bring God into all these circumstances. That's the solution, because God is the God of the family. Yeah, it's God that's holding your family together. It's God that's holding your body together. It's God that's giving you next breath. God's power and God's grace and God's goodness. And to pray with your family. Pray together, stay together. So I've got a topic here from page 96 from a chapter called Working with Others, which is a wonderful portion of the book. And here it is. So, page 95, actually. So, working with others. So, if you come across someone that's got the problem of addiction and they think they can do the job another way, or they've got some other spiritual approach, encourage them to do that. We don't have a monopoly on recovery, actually, There's many other programs out there that claim great success. There really are. What we do know is that this particular way definitely works. We're not like dissing other ways and methods. What we do know that this program works every single time. There's no question. In fact, there isn't any mysterious it. People say, does it work? That's a false question, a false premise. The question is, do you work? Do you work? That's the question. If you're willing to work, then God will be gracious to you and you can recover. That's it. So we have a common solution, see. And so if someone wants to do it another way, let it go at that. Don't be discouraged if they don't respond at once. Find someone else and try to help them. Eventually, you'll find someone desperate enough to accept what you offer. We don't chase people. We shouldn't be chasing folk. If they want the help, they know if they've already come into contact with 12-step recovery and healthy meetings and good sponsorship and literature and steps, they know where to find those things, actually. I don't chase anyone. No. If they don't answer or return a call on a couple of occasions, then that's it. That's us. If someone doesn't answer or return a call, actually, that is a choice. You know exactly where you stand, and that's perfectly fine. But conversely, if they want to ring up and re-engage, then that's also perfectly fine. But eventually, many such persons that walk away, they eventually realise that they cannot recover by themselves. So if you spend too much time trying to chase and help one individual, you're denying the opportunity to another alcoholic addict that you could be helping, And then he gives the example, someone failed with the first 6 folk he worked with, and if he'd continued to work with them persons that didn't want to sober up and clean up, then he wouldn't have been able to help others, and those others did recover, see. So it talks about if you go to see someone for the second time, they've read the book, they're ready to go through the steps, give them some of your experience, let them know that you're available. But if they want to consult someone else, that's also fine. So you need to be careful about getting too involved with the financial side of things. Most alcoholics addicts have financial problems in different degrees. You've got to use wisdom and be discreet. Yes, I've taken alcoholic addicts into my home in the past, and you need to be very careful with that, Ashley. Not something I would do again. So you've got to really carry the message, pray for them, make sure they have access to online meetings, that they know where to find in-person meetings, make sure they've got some literature, if not how they can get literature, add them to some WhatsApp groups, send them heaps of resources on WhatsApp, make sure they know about this Cocaine Anonymous YouTube channel, which just let all our listeners know anyone can find by going to YouTube and typing in Cocaine Anonymous 12-step program. That's the word 12, not the number 12. Cocaine Anonymous 12-step program, and it will appear. The green CA icon will appear. And once again, if you want to appear on one of these broadcasts, just put your first name, number, and put I'd like to appear, and we'll get in touch with you. Similarly, if you'd like the sponsorship list, you can just put your first name, number, sponsorship list, and we will send it to you on WhatsApp. Yeah. So it's a great thing to work with others and to see folks set free. I have seen folk come out of sanitariums and hospitals and out of custody, and I've seen them recover, Ashley. I really have. So miracles do happen. Jails and asylums, I've seen them folk recover, Alrighty, so I'm going to pass it over to you, Ashley. What would you like to say? A few things briefly.
Thanks very much, Paul. It's been it's been a fantastic opportunity, and it's good to it's been good to share this common solution that we're a part of. And if there's anyone new listening, welcome. And like Paul was saying, there's so many possible ways that we can get through this horrific illness. But thanks very much, Paul.
All righty, and I do just want to say to our listeners, the chat is open. If you do want to reach out in the chat on this, you can do so just now if you wish. So the chat has been open throughout. So on the screen now is a meetings list. Me and Ashley are often found at the one at the top there in the purple box. It's on 3 times a day, every day. Very healthy meeting. It's called We Can Recover, Cocaine Anonymous. All the meetings on that screen are on every single day. They're all open public meetings. More meetings, more chances. In meetings, you get a checkup from the neck up. Now, there's lots of resources. If you look at this screen here, there is a phenomenal free app called Everything AA, which is great because you can listen to or read the entire 12 and 12 and Big Book on there completely free. And the whole collection of the Joe and Charlie tapes is on there too. So I want to thank you all for listening. It's been a delight. I want to thank you, Ashley, for being here once again.
Thanks very much, Paul.
Lovely. Great job, as always. So, okay, and as I say, welcome to our listeners. And so we'll be back soon with another one. If you do want to get involved in the conversation, as I say, just comment below wherever you see this posted. And we'll be back soon in the next one. Stay safe. Stay strong, family. Shalom, shalom.